Welcome to Students of Aging, the podcast that honors the incredible journeys and stories of seniors growing older. Tune in and become a part of our community as we redefine what it means to age gracefully and purposefully.
Welcome to the Students of Aging podcast, a co-production of the Wood Green Senior Advisory Council and funded by the federal government. These podcasts have been produced by the members themselves, and today I'm very happy to be able to introduce to you someone I'm very fond of, who I've known for quite a while, Josie Brown. Josie is an amazing writer. I met her first at a writing workshop, and we've been friends ever since. After much cajoling and I guess convincing from a number of people, you finally published a book, and we're so thrilled for you. So I'm so glad to have you in conversation today. Welcome, Josie. Josie Brown's new book, published on Amazon, is titled Finding Zen in a Traffic Jam.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Your book's amazing. It's full of wonderful stories, and I just wanted to ask you, so how did you come to write the book?
The book is actually a compilation of stories that I have written over a period of time. So I didn't actually sit down to write a book. I sat down to organize the stories that I had written over time.
Wonderful.
And it became a book all by itself.
So when did you first start writing?
Not a time when I didn't write, Barb. I have been writing all of my life. I remember as a child in school, I used to hear the teacher say, "Josephine, are you with the class?" And I would respond in kind, of course, "Yes, miss." And of course, I'd be writing. I wasn't more than maybe 8 or 9 years of age.
Well, to give our viewers and our listeners a little bit of information on this, I'm just going to read from you on the back of the book a little bit about Josie. She was born in 1942. Josie is a woman of substantial life experience who is obsessed with traveling the 7 seas, and it almost appears that she only actually lives from one ocean-going voyage to the next. She's never happier than when crossing the North Atlantic with Jonah Lees, her beloved wife of 26 years. In reality, she's a loving mother, a hands-on grandmother, and a proud great-grandmother. A dedicated writer, she's the happiest holding court, spinning her tales, and sharing her bits of wisdom with others. I can certainly attest to that. And some of her favorite pastimes when she's on dry land are editing photos, planning travels, and entertaining her family and friends. So anyone who picks up this book, and I highly recommend it for anyone who's particularly interested in cruising, because you have been on a lot of cruises. So maybe you want to talk a little bit about how you first came to have that love of the sea. I understand you came to Canada on a ship.
I did, back in 1948, on the final crossing of the Aquitania with my grandmother. I hold the dubious distinction of being the most traveled, longest ago traveler on Cunard lines. Usually when I'm at sea, the captain will center me out in a room full of people and mention that fact. I'll stand up and say, yes, it was 1948 that we came over. And it's nice. It's wonderful.
I know in one of our writing workshops, you wrote very movingly about being on a ship and about how when they cross over where the Titanic has gone down, there's a little ceremony or something to commemorate that.
What they do is they usually meet in one of the larger rooms. And anyone who wants to, they don't show the movie Titanic at sea,
no.
by the way. That's a big
All for the best, right?
Probably not a good idea.
Not a good idea.
However, they do gather, and people discuss it, and people honor it. And I myself no longer join those galleries. I like to be alone at that time in my cabin, and I like to go out on the balcony and look over and just sort of know that they were there and I'm here, and there's some sort of I commune with them. I feel that. I make time for that every time I do a North Atlantic cruise.
How many cruises in general have you been on?
72.
Amazing.
72.
Absolutely amazing. Now, Cunard, obviously, you have a special affinity for because you write very movingly about the Queen Mary. I think there's 2 stories about the Queen Mary in the book. So what is there about canard that makes it so special for you?
Actually, I was in a discussion with someone last night about that. And having done 22 canard cruises over the years, I think Canard was the shipping company that we used as a family to go back and forth between Scotland and Canada. So as the relatives would come, we'd go home after maybe the first year or two when we accumulated a few dollars. It was always Canard ships because back in those days, cruises were not a thing. People really didn't cruise,
Yeah.
you know. But the Canard is almost like a bus route back and forth to the old country.
And I think when you read books from a certain time frame, we forget that there was no transatlantic flights. So if you were going to Europe to do the grand tour or something, you did it and it started on an ocean voyage.
Of course. And there's still the je ne sais quoi that comes with it. That's all part of it.
Yeah.
And it's lovely. And they ring the bell. There's a wonderful brass bell on deck 4. And every day at noon, they ring that bell, which was a gift from her elder sister, Mary the First.
What I found was interesting in the book was when you're talking about the Queen Mary 2, it's almost like there's like this passionate relationship with the ship. It's almost like discovering a young love or something of that nature.
It's more than that. Yeah, I am passionate about the Queen Mary too, because she's everything that was there in my childhood. The memory I have of childhood is tied to the Queen Mary too, and other Canard ships, of course. And we went back to the old country a lot. Whenever we could save up enough cash to go, we would go back and forth, back and forth. And consequently, I went to schools in Canada, Ireland, and Scotland, and just bobbed around those 3 countries. And I just love it. I love it. It's like coming home when I go on the Queen Mary, we get that welcome home sort of thing.
Lovely.
It's wonderful. And the traditions. And of course, they have so much to offer. So I could sell Queen.
I was going to say, I think we're going to have to send this podcast to Canard, and I think they owe you a trip after this. So that's all there is to it. What I also found about your book is that it's populated with such wonderful characters. One of which that I think a lot of people it's rung true to as your neighbor next door, Tassia. Tassia. Okay. So Tassia, what I liked about that was that it was because you've been the matriarch of your family for a very long time. But in that relationship, you got to be the daughter.
The first time I met her, I had bought the house, and one of the things I have done in my time is I buy houses, renovate them, and sell them. I've done that many times over the years. It's been rewarding. This is a property I bought for the purpose of renovating and flipping. And I remember the first time I met, and I'm still in it, by the way, 30 years later.
Yes.
Because Madam won't let me sell this one. She's got her feet under the table and we're going nowhere. However, getting back to Tessia, came to view the property, and I walked down the driveway, and I heard a voice from the side door, driveways between our 2 homes. And I heard her side door open, and she turned, and her English was barely there. She really couldn't say anything in English. And she opened the door. She goes, "Are you a real estate?"
Oh.
It was almost as if I was scared of her. I thought, "Oh, who's that witchy, scary old lady?" Anyway, moved into the house. All went well, renovated for 2 or 3 months. And came to know a little bit about her, that her daughter had died in childbirth.
Oh.
And this was the bane of her life. That was many, many years ago. At that point, I might have been in my 40s or early 50s, perhaps. And I was the same age as her daughter, and I reminded her of her daughter. And she became a pseudo mother to us. Both of our mothers were dead. And the way she treated us was so motherly, so lovingly. When we'd go to work, she would slip things like saran wrapped home baking. She'd cut up fruit and give it to us. She was so kind to us. And consequently, whenever we traveled, she would bless us. She'd come out and she'd give us one of these. She was just wonderful. Didn't speak English. We don't speak Greek. And we never stopped talking for 20 odd years. Tessia and Joan Lisa and myself.
Yeah.
We loved each other very much.
Yes. Yeah. It's a beautiful story. And I think it's one of the things that people don't realize, that as they're aging, even as they're middle-aged or older, you still end up meeting people who really could be your mother, and they do have that instinct or something to you, and you're drawn to them and they're drawn to you. I know we had a very good friend that was that we had met through Wood Green in the senior advisory, and she said, I have all boys and now I have daughters. I think it's maybe one of the reasons why I relate to that story so much. I think it's just so beautiful. Yes. It's really a lovely, lovely story. Now, you mostly write memoir, like all of these stories. I think you told me once that the book is 90% true, like our true stories, or 80% true, or something like that. What drew you to doing like memoir and true stories as opposed to writing stories, like just out of the air fiction?
As the matriarch of a large family, there's a lot going on in our little patch. I've got a lot to write about with these people. There's a lot going on, and I know their stories. I know who they are. And when I write, and this is what I love, and this is one of the things that I love about writing. When I write, I think, what will Michelle think of this? What will William think of this? I wonder how the children will feel when they read.
Yes, yes.
And so they actually, maybe without realizing it, but I'm writing for them.
Which is wonderful. And I think it's Michelle and William are her daughter and her son. And I think one of the nicest things about writing at an older age as well is that you're leaving a legacy for your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren, because they will know you more based on the fact that you have written these stories and other stories to come, I'm sure. But I think that that's one of the really nice legacies of doing memoir.
Thank you. I'm so happy that you understand that. So that tells me that others will understand what I have written and what it's about.
Yeah.
That's why it's important to me too.
Yeah. And I think the lovely thing is for me that you having finally published a book so that lots of people can go on Amazon and they can purchase it and know your stories, is that it is something that is tangible of those memories. And I think that's really important.
It's very important.
Yeah. What I really loved about the book too is that it's so positive. Like, I found that in this time frame where everything, you turn on the news and it's all about prices going up and political things, that this is there are very positive stories in this. Was that a deliberate sort of thing when you were writing it?
No, there was nothing deliberate about that. It wasn't a decision on my part at all. I write what I feel. I sometimes feel like I'm a facilitator because I write compulsively. The words almost fall out of my head onto the paper. And that is what I feel. And I happen to be a very positive person. And I guess that's reflected in my work. Now, it won't always be like that, because there's times that I'm in the process currently of writing my autobiography. And I suspect that's going to take quite a while.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's going to be quite as positive as the current book.
No.
However, time will tell.
I think in everyone's life journey, there are times that are very positive and there's negatives. I tend to think of life as being sort of like a wave. And sometimes you're riding the crest of the wave and you're going like, oh, everything is wonderful, da, 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 da. And then something bad happens. You lose a job, someone passes away who's near to you, something like that. And then you go up like this.
Absolutely. I think so too.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, when one is depressed, one doesn't really want to share that. So consequently, you don't write very much when you're depressed.
Yeah.
But when you're feeling great about life in general, sure you do.
What I liked so much about your book too is that you go back in time to different time frames. Like, you're a child at one point. You talk about growing up in Glasgow, which was at a time when I think you said you didn't even have indoor plumbing. Like
That's right.
Yeah.
Not when we lived in Mary Hill. Now, as an adult, I can see it was interesting. As a child, I thought it was wonderful. It was just wonderful. Um, One of the things that were not quite as wonderful were waking up in the middle of the night to use the washroom when you had to, because in Glasgow, we only had a room and kitchen. And we had a bed that was set in the wall. It was in a kitchen, but it was, if you think of it, the size of a double bed, that space was carved out of the wall and it was set in there. We thought it was wonderful because we had come from Portaferry in Glasgow, where we certainly didn't have indoor plumbing. And where we slept was upstairs on a mattress that was stuffed with hay. We had to climb a ladder. My grandmother and I climbed a ladder to a little hole in the ceiling. And that was where we slept.
Wow.
So this was an upgrade.
Yeah.
Having a room and kitchen was great.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, so things like that mattered.
Yeah.
But, you know, as a child, it was all one big experience. Just a great experience.
So you didn't have a chamber pot under the bed or
We
somewhere?
did, but we weren't
Yeah.
allowed to talk about it.
Oh, okay. So we won't
Tell
we won't
people.
talk about it. Can you just help me? I think Portaferry, is that in Ireland?
Portaferry is in Ireland.
So you went from Ireland to Glasgow.
I was born in Scotland.
Yes.
Then I went to Ireland with my parents.
Oh, lovely.
And then back to Scotland for a while. And then to Canada, to Halifax and Prince Edward Island.
Oh.
And then to Toronto. So on and so forth.
One of the things I liked about the book as well was when you told a story about you working with a woman and you were working pressing records, like vinyl records.
Park Sound Records in Scarborough. That was fun because, you know, explain, you took the product you wore, obviously a very special product as it came out of the extruder, slapped it on, and you had maybe 4.5 seconds. If you were new at the job, 4.5 seconds. By the time myself and the ladies that I worked with were doing it, we had less than 2.5 seconds. It just,
I can't imagine.
but it wasn't tedious because it was piecework, and you really wanted to. You wanted to do well, and obviously I did well because I was still in my teens when I took that job, and I ended up as an audio inspector, which meant that I had a room probably just less than the size of this room, but a good size. I had all sorts of tapes and electrical things, and I'd play each record and listen to it and give it a review.
Do you remember the names of any of the ones that you particularly liked?
There were a lot of big bands.
Oh, I would have loved that.
A lot of big bands. It was a wonderful job.
You
know, and then I would do that, and then I'd come out of my booth and I'd go to all 12 machines, and I would take a record from one of the machines, and I'd come back and I would try it. And you never, ever, ever edit the singer. You always edit the plastic. So you have to listen for sounds of plastic, and I'm a good listener. Speaking of that time, what's interesting at that time, my friend became pregnant and had to quit work before she started to show. At that point, no one was allowed to do anything otherwise. You couldn't work and be pregnant at the same time.
It was very similar in large corporations too, because I remember I had a boyfriend a long time ago, obviously, a boyfriend, and his mother had worked for Bell Canada, and same sort of thing. The moment she got pregnant, she had to leave. So I guess you didn't tell, as long as you know, to keep your job in order to be able to do that sort of thing. I picked out something that I saw on the internet, when I was looking about writing and aging, and it was what I had enjoyed. It said, writing memoirs for seniors is more than just a creative hobby. It's a transformative journey that enriches the mind, soothes the soul, and leaves a lasting legacy for future generations. And I'm just wondering, do you find that writing is soothing? Because you're so passionate about it. You write all the time.
Nothing soothing about it.
No, okay.
Nothing soothing about it. But it does something wonderful to you after there's such a sense of satisfaction. I binge write. I might write for 3 or 4 days nonstop. I will eat whatever is brought to me, and I continue to write. I'll go and sleep for a few hours, and I'll come back, and I'll have my coffee, and I'll get back to writing. So this is how I write. So in terms of soothing, my writing is frequently a little more frenetic than anything else. But it doesn't always show on the paper. But I can tell when I edit, I can tell the difference.
Well, you can tell that it's very highly polished too. Like, I mean, in terms of you really think about the words you use and the way you use them, because you have such a wonderful turn of phrase, which I think is really lovely. Like, it's really lovely. And what I find too is that it's so hopeful. Like, it's so hopeful for the for people reading this, that life doesn't stop at like 55 or 60 or something like that, that it really keeps going on. And you're never too old to excel, which is what I find is really interesting as well. Yeah.
You're never too old for anything.
Yeah.
The world's open. It's for a living, isn't it?
It is, absolutely, absolutely. The one story I'd like you to read for us, which I is personally my favorite, is the one Being on the Right Side of 70. It's absolutely lovely, and I think it illustrates what we're talking about.
Being on the right side of 70 is simply fabulous. It also brings with it a tremendous sense of freedom. Freedom to not only speak one's own truth, but to share the truth with anyone near enough to listen. The freedom to pontificate on any number of subjects and hold court with all of the interesting people that one accumulates over 7 decades. Or simply the freedom to be silly, laugh at ourselves, and color our hair in multiple shades of blue if we so desire. Quite simply, just because we can. I'm calling it COVID blue. Of course I'm old, even by my standards. But somehow I've managed to stay on this side of the grass for 3/4 of a century. Well, imagine that. When we become older, people seem to think that our sense of wonderment, our sense of interest in life, our excitement for new experiences, new travels, and our enthusiasm for our love should all have been over years ago. That simply is not so, unless we let it become so, unless we see ourselves through negativity. I've never actually looked at life that way, nor have I viewed myself in that manner. Besides good health, I value a self of self-confidence. Self-awareness is more valuable than gold. None of us are born with it, but with perseverance and the right tools, most of us can create it. I believe I continue to improve at everything I am and all that I do. The trick is, I believe, and I believe it, and I believe in me. I've not loved every year, of course, of this long, sometimes terrifying, occasionally heartbreaking, frequently tumultuous, and then again thrilling ride we call life. But I've loved enough of them to know that it's been worth the trip. I believe that as the years go by, we're all sort of polishing our spirit, ripening, honing our skills, evaluating our progress in preparation for the next go-round. And there will be a next go-round. Of that, I am absolutely positive, because I've got a whole lot of living to do on this merry-go-round of life.
Yay. I absolutely love that story. I just find it so incredibly, I don't know, life affirming, positive. I love that story. And you read so beautifully. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. I can't tell you how much it means to me that you said that you would do this, because I think that I'm a little prejudiced because we are friends, but I think it's amazing what you've done. I think it's amazing that you continue to write the way you do. And I think it's a real inspiration, not just for people who know you, but for people who hopefully will know you through this. And for those of you who are only listening to us on your podcast, you can't see that she has beautiful blue hair. When I was a young person, they used to make jokes about little old ladies with blue hair. But no, no one's going to do that. She rocks it.
It's fun.
Yeah.
I mean, we're only going this way once. Why not do it in Technicolor?
No, you're a beautiful soul. And thank you so much for doing this. We really do appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more amazing content every week. If you want to catch more of our adventures, check out the videos right here on our YouTube channel. And And remember to leave a comment below. Let us know what you think or what you'd like to see next. We love hearing from you. Catch you in the next one.
On the next episode, Acting Out with Jeffrey Canton.
Like, for example, when Black Lives Matters interrupted the Pride Parade, other people would say, oh my God, what were they doing? I said good for them. Because for me, a lot of the time we forget who our allies were. When those bathhouse raids took place, the Black community stood with the gay community, hand in hand. What's happened over the years? There have been big splits, race and culture, and I think what we need to do is we need to bring people together. For me, it's storytelling that can do that.